One of the biggest recurring storylines in Power Rangers is time travel. It's occurred throughout multiple seasons, involving a variety of different characters, even when it doesn't seem likely. We start off in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers with a 3-part special return of the Green Ranger. Lord Zed and Rita summon the Wizard of Deception, an ancient wizard tasked to destroy Tommy Oliver. To do so, he creates a clone of Tommy and sends the other 5 Rangers back to the late 1700s. So whilst the Rangers are in the past doing these time travel shenanigans, Tommy is in the present fighting this clone who is actually just named Tom rather than Tommy. Tommy then manages to use the wizard's wand to send himself back in time to collect the Rangers and bring them back to the future.
Back to the future!
Tommy fights Tom, breaks Tom free of the brainwashing, so now there's 2 good Tommies. He then takes Tom back in time with him back to the late 1700s to fight off the rats to make sure the people of Angel Grove back then are safe. And then it gets weird. Tommy then says, look, I know you're a clone, but like you exist now and you need life. And what happens is weird because Tom then decides to stay in the late 1700s and he says, look, I can build a life for myself here, we're all good. And that's what happens, and Tommy goes back to the future.
Back to the future!
And just before I continue, it's worth stating that this is done via wizard magic. Kicking off the official list of methods of travel. Magic. Just magic. Peak. No notes. Now this instance of time travel doesn't like change the course of history or anything, but this may mean that Tommy Oliver is a Jinn particle. A Jinn particle is something that just exists in time. Like there was no beginning to it, it's just kind of always been there. So there's many theories that because Tom stayed in the There's many theories that because Tom stayed in the past, he went on to find a friend, let's say, and create the Oliver bloodline, resulting in Tommy Oliver's inevitable birth in the 1970s. Because of course he's an identical clone of Tommy Oliver, so the genetics kind of line up in that respect. And of course it is just a theory, but if that's the case, then Tom is actually Tommy's like ancestor, but then Tom gets created via Tommy, goes to the past, creates Tommy through ancestry, and we're in a loop, which would make Tommy Oliver a Jinn particle. And yeah, it's just a theory, but it's kind of insane to think about. But anyway, we're going to continue. But before I move on, just quickly, we should talk about the time the Earth was reversed in the show, because it happened twice, and personally I don't consider it to be time travel. There was 2 occasions where the Earth's rotation basically swapped the direction it was going in, and it transported everybody back in time, but like it just like reversed the effect of time, but no one time traveled, if you get what I mean. And it was only on Earth as well. It was only the time on Earth that was reversed. So the way I'm considering anything to be time travel is that time has to continue as usual for like 99.9% of the population, with only one or a group of people physically traveling through time. If you disagree with that, let me know in the comments. That's how I'm judging it. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers has another time travel storyline with the 2-parter Wild West Rangers. In this story, the team tried to teleport to the command center, but Kimberly's communicator or teleporter doesn't work for whatever reason, and she gets swept up into a portal. The team arrive and notice Kim's absence, and Alpha 5 says that her teleportation signal got swept into a time hole. Billy says that it is a tear in the fabric of time, and it can literally send somebody anywhere into the future or the past, so they have no idea where Kimberly is. However, we learn that Zed and Rita had some intent behind this time hole, planning to send a monster and some putties back in time to destroy Angel Grove before it ever existed. A kind of less morbid way of doing the whole kill the Rangers as babies type thing. So Kimberly's in the past, specifically the late 19th century, where everything was considered to be the Wild West. Although I'm sure it wasn't considered that at the time, and there's more hindsight thing, but you get the picture. With this, Kimberly meets a bunch of characters who are actually just descendants of her team. Abraham, William, Alicia, and Rocco. She also meets the White Stranger, which is just Tommy, and could potentially fit into the whole Jinn particle descendant line. I mean, who knows? So whilst the Rangers fight bad guys in the present, a team of putties are sent into the past along with Goldar and Needlenose, a cactus monster. Kim is out of options, so she morphs and fights off the monster and the putties, and then decides if she has any hope whatsoever, then she needs to try and find Zordon and Alpha, hoping that they exist at this point in time. And they do. The inside of the command center looks fucking identical to how it does in present day. They've clearly not updated their tech in the longest time. The outside of the command center, however, looks like this. Maybe the funniest thing the show's ever done. So of course this version of Zordon and Alpha haven't got a clue who Kimberly is, but just through the fact that she's a Power Ranger with the pterodactyl power coin, despite them having the pterodactyl power coin, is enough for at least Zordon to be like, she's clearly a Ranger from the future, I believe her. She asked them for the power coins in order to create a team in the past, consisting of the Ranger's ancestors. They comply but don't give her the pink coin, sparking the 3-decade-long meme of too much pink energy is dangerous.
Very dangerous.
I don't care how dangerous too much pink energy is.
So the ancestors then morph and they become the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, complete with cowboy boots, sleeve tassels, and ascots. What you'd expect happens. They fight the bad guys, they think the powers are cool, they get the powers taken from them, and Kimberly is then sent back to the future.
Back to the future!
Here's my question. Do Zordon and Alpha remember this? When they were recruiting the Power Rangers on that fateful day in 1993, were they like, yeah, this is gonna go down well because we know Kimberly becomes a Ranger? Or do you think they forgot? There was definitely no like time wiping. Even if Zordon's got memory loss, Alpha's a robot. He shouldn't be able to forget shit like that. That said, we do have a new form of time travel. Time holes. Which is time holes. It is what it is. Something tells me that one isn't showing up again. Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers is set in an era where the Earth was reversed, like I mentioned earlier, but they do specifically all travel back in time when searching for the Zeo subcrystals. Rocky travels to Latin America around the 1930s, Adam travels to an unknown time in Korea, Tommy ends up somewhere in the past of North America, Kat travels to mid-20th century Australia, and Aisha, well, Aisha's a weird case. It is believed by some that Aisha ended up in Africa in the 1980s, and then that's when she met Tanya, swapped places with her, and then Tanya was aged up by 10 years. My opinion on it, and I know a lot of other people's opinions, is that she was in Africa in the 1980s, but in the same respect of the Earth anyway was in the 1980s because of the reversal. So Aisha technically didn't time travel, but she just traveled through space, met Tanya, they swapped places, and then even if they hadn't swapped places, the Earth would have returned back to normal and Tanya would have become 10 years older as well. It's a debate that's gone on for quite some time in the fandom. I've done videos on it. There was time travel shenanigans there, and they used a time hole again. Zordon was able to locate a time hole, which is kind of cool that they kept that theme going. I just think that a time hole is like a bit of a shitty way of doing time travel. You know, like magic is like also a bit of a cop-out, but I mean, it's magic. Do you know what I mean? Time hole is a bit weak. In Power Rangers Zeo, we get the episode A Brief Mystery of Time. In this episode, it seems the day keeps repeating itself, very much in the style of Groundhog Day, but Tommy is the only one who's able to remember the events. At first he calls deja vu, but then he just starts predicting absolutely everything, and he tries to convince the team. He then goes to Zordon and Alpha and is just like, this day keeps repeating itself, I know what's going to happen every 4 seconds. They find out that due to some sort of spell that he was under prior in the season, his brainwaves just were altered and he was able to detect the anomaly, which is wild. Like, Tommy is like technically a superhuman being now. Not that he wasn't being a Power Ranger anyway, but you know what I mean? They learn that the Machine Empire had set up a never-ending time loop that causes the day to repeat itself whilst they progress in taking over the galaxy. And it's done so via a time hole. I was so sure that a time hole was never going to be brought up again after that one use in MMPR. And now it accounts for 3 of the 4 scenarios that we've gone through. Eventually, the Rangers destroy the source of the time loop, and things continue as usual. I was considering whether or not to talk about this one because it kind of does fall into the category of like the Earth just repeating itself, but the Machine Empire were sort of outside a pocket of the time hole, and they were progressing as usual and progressing how they normally would, and because of that I feel like it counts as time travel, at least on the Machine Empire's part. Power Rangers Turbo gives us a bit more of a heavy hitter with the Millennium Message. Alpha 5 detects a spaceship in the Earth's atmosphere that came from an interdimensional warp. The ship crash lands in front of Divatox and her army, revealing a robotic soldier to be inside. They take him back to their base where he's activated and starts giving a message. He says that he's come from the future to deliver a message to Demetria of Inquirers, revealing that the United Alliance of Evil, Rita, Zed, Machine Empire, Divatox, Astronomer, all those guys, will destroy the Earth in the future. Of course, it's Divatox that hears this and not Demetria, so she tries to use the Blue Centurion on her side. They sort of rewire him, and now he's evil. But eventually they manage to get a hold of the Blue Centurion. Justin is able to rewire him. They're able to see the message for themselves, and the Blue Centurion joins them as an ally. And we know that the United Alliance of Evil don't win in the end. Dark Spectre's destroyed, and as we see with Zordon's Z-Wave, the rest of the United Alliance are destroyed. Which means, in theory, the timeline that Blue Centurion would have gone back to was changed. Even though we don't see him go back to that timeline, he kind of stays in the present, at least for a little bit. So I wondered if that changed the timeline. I wonder if if they sort of did an endgame method with the timeline split. I don't know. We can theorize, though. The Blue Centurion was a galactic police officer, there definitely could have been more experiments with time travel which allowed the Blue Centurion to travel back. Knowing that he's a police officer wouldn't make it too far-fetched to believe that he was deployed by SPD, and there's even an episode of SPD where they're playing a side fighter game and the Blue Centurion is one of the avatars, so maybe he is an SPD bot that they just went, yeah, we'll put him into our game as well. I mean, I don't know, it could be a thing. Turbo also has an episode called When Time Freezes Over, but that once again falls in line more so with like the reversal of time rather than time travel. But consider this to be my official acknowledgement of it. Lightspeed Rescue has another Groundhog Day episode where only Carter is able to remember the events of the repeating day. He gets to repeat it over and over again until they eventually win or he gets everything right that he needed to get right. There is never an explanation for this. There is literally, like, nobody at the end is like, oh, there was a monster reversing time or demon for that show. It just happened and went unexplained. Dare I say a time hole. I just want to take a break and say there's a good reason why I wanted to make this video. As you can see so far, they love time travel in this show. Yeah, it's not used in every season. Well, I mean, so far it's kind of been used in every season other than Lost Galaxy, I suppose. But I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if they started to base an entire season off the concept of time travel.
Time Force! Time Force! Go!
Lamau. Alright. Lock in. A force from the future, Ransik travels from the year 3000 to the year 2001 to take over the world before the Time Force ever existed. The Time Force Rangers follow him into the past, but to activate their chronomorphers, they must find the ancestor of their Red Ranger to unlock the DNA code. They find Wes and become the Time Force Power Rangers. All of this is done by Time Force's own technology in the form of time ships. They had invented a way to safely travel humans through time via these ships, allowing them to travel to not only exact times, but exact coordinates. Clash and Control. In this two-parter, prior to the events of Power Rangers Time Force, the Q-Rex Zord was lost in time during an experiment, so Ransik sends a mutant back in time to find it, using a time hole. How was this caught on? How are time holes canon to the show? Why are time holes a real? Why? Anyway, Eric uses the TF Eagle to follow the mutant into the time hole, and Wes becomes a stowaway whilst trying to stop him. At the other end of the time hole, they emerge at a time where dinosaurs still exist. Wes and Eric go on the hunt for the Q-Rex, trying to beat the mutant to it. Unfortunately, they are too late, and the mutant takes it back to the future.
Back to the future!
Before they get there. It sucks to be them. They then race back to the time hole before it closes, returning to their correct timeline. As per the second part, Eric does claim the Q-Rex, but no more time travel occurs for the episode. All I'm going to say right now as well, it's worth noting that every single time the Rangers need their Zords, or any sort of additional artillery, does get sent back in time. So they summon it from the year 3000, they get sent back, no Busted or Jonas Brothers involved, which has already increased the number of time travel shenanigans in this show as it is. Dawn of Destiny. The Rangers are being monitored by an unidentified officer, later revealing it to be Alex Drake from the year 3000. He says that whilst the team have been trying to destroy the mutants and Ransik, they have been altering the future. Alex needs to fix it. Alex eventually travels back to the future.
Back to the future!
Communicating with them from the year 3000, just to try and line up the timeline again and try and make things better. Eventually in the finale episodes of Time Force, the team do go back to the year 3000 and leave Wes in his current timeline, and there's communication between them and there's a couple of trips made. It gets out of hand towards the end. That is of course until Wild Force, when the team travel back to the year 2002 to help fight a mute Org, which is half mutant, half Org from of course Time Force and Wild Force. What's interesting though is that in this crossover it implies, well I mean it states, but then it additionally implies that Jen is sort of like a time traveling bounty hunter, so there's every chance that she's time traveled to a bunch of different destinations in the process between when we last seen her and now. And all of these are cases of Time Force technology. So that's Time Force technology is of course one of the biggest uses of time travel in the show. Overall, there wasn't a hell of a lot of time travel within Time Force. Again, if you consider the fact they summon the Zords from the future, then there's time travel like every episode. But for a show called Power Rangers Time Force, they don't do a lot of time traveling, which is wild. You'd think that'd be like the shenanigans would be traveling through time, different time periods, whatever. No, I mean it's a peak show. I don't know anybody who doesn't love Time Force, but yeah, it's just a weird one. Now, Ninja Storm at face value doesn't seem like a show that would have any time travel in it, but one of the most pivotal stories in the show is time travel related. The three-part arc called A Samurai's Journey is all about Cam Watanabe becoming the Green Samurai Ranger. The Rangers are losing their powers, and for some reason there is no hope other than for Cam Watanabe to use the Scrolls of Time. Something that his father, the Sensei, is not fond of him doing, but of course he does it anyway. He opens the scroll, sending him 20 years into the past, or roughly 20 years into the past, to find a great power. He's still at the Ninja Academy and meets a young but very wise woman who turns out to be Cam's mother, who passed away when he was very young. Along with his mother, he also meets a younger version of his father and his uncle, who we learn for the first time in this episode is also Lothar. The big bad of the series is part of the family, who'd have thought. Anyway, he ends up in a fight with Lothar, but he's gained an amulet from his mother. That amulet not only gives him the strength to defeat Lothar, but it gives him the ability to go back to the future.
Back to the future!
Once he returned, he found out the amulet is actually the Green Samurai Morpher, and the rest is history. There's one more episode of this Samurai's Journey malarkey, and it's not really relevant at all. There's kind of adds a bit to the story, but not really. It was said in the show that the amulet went missing for many years. Of course, the explanation just being that it was there in, let's say, roughly 1983, and then got taken out of the timeline and returned in 2003, which is kind of cool that, like, canonically it went missing, but in fact it was just pulled out of time and brought back to the future.
Back to the future!
And if you've made it to this part of the video, I just want to say thank you so much. Really appreciate you. We're very close to 22,000 subscribers, which I know is a weird number to be saying that's the goal, but that's what I'm trying to get to by the end of July. If you want to help contribute to it, I'd very much appreciate it. If not, likes and shares are fine, but if you're down there hitting the like button, you may as well hit the subscribe button. And we also have a Patreon for where just £3 per month, which is like the price of like a coffee or a sandwich or a meal deal. You can get early access to videos, you can get ad-free viewing, you can get your names credited at the end of these videos, and sometimes there will be some exclusive content there as well. Now, Power Rangers SPD takes place in the year 2025, which isn't necessarily relevant to time travel, but it does have a lot of time travel involved. For starters, the Omega Ranger is from the future, Sam, as is Nova. They travel to 2025 at different points, but both seem to have been related to SPD technology. However, in the finale of the show, we do see what seems to be a time hole. So, SPD technology mixed with time holes involved? Maybe the SPD technology harnesses time holes. Maybe that's the link there. In the episode titled Samurai, Emperor Grum uses a time portal to bring an alien called Katana from the past to cause havoc in Kyoto, Japan. Katana was apparently the first ever alien to train to be a samurai many years ago, which definitely doesn't help with the whole Cosmic Fury, New Tech City, alien refugee story they tried to work in to explain SPD. In the episode History, Broodwing brings Connor, Kira, and Ethan, aka the Dino Thunder Rangers, from the year 2005 to 2025. They eventually team up with the SPD Rangers and get their memories wiped before being sent home. But we do learn that in 2025, Connor owns a brand of soccer camps all across the country, Kira is a famous musician, and Ethan is a genius that developed technology that is even being used at SPD. And whilst their memories do get wiped, I love how they sort of incorporated future lore into these characters. You know, it's a nice sort of mentality to know that these characters will go on to do great things, even though we didn't see them past their show, really. It's unclear how much time passed between the last crossover, but Emperor Grum does eventually decide to go through a wormhole to 2004 to try and take over the world before SPD existed. Of course, unlucky for them, but very lucky for us as fans, 2004 is when Dino Thunder takes place and when those Rangers are active, giving us our second SPD Dino Thunder crossover that this time includes Trent as well. Technically Tommy too, but he's only ever morphed. They use old voice lines, and even Trent's actor dubs for Tommy for some bits. It's weird, you can tell, but it's fine. They tried, and that's the thought that counts. Jaxie and Bridge are the first to travel back to 2004, while Sky, Sid, Sam, and Anubis stay in 2025 to defend the present. Eventually, they all travel back, and we get another great team-up. This time, not only do they wipe the Dino Thunder team's memories, but they also wipe their own memories. And I, to this day, don't know why. Wouldn't affect the future at all. They remember the last time they met. Anubis Kruger says it's because it's only fair, but they didn't do that last time. And why is it fair? They're only doing this so it doesn't affect the future. What's going on? All instances of time travel in this particular episode are through the wormhole, which you could say is just a reword for time hole. And maybe it fucking is. I don't care anymore. I wasn't digging the concept of time holes to begin with, but the show just kept reusing them. So I guess that's a mainstay now. Maybe everything in the future is done through a time hole. I don't know. Wormhole, time hole, same thing, different thing? Tell me in the comments. I'm losing my mind. In Power Rangers Operation Overdrive, the Sentinel Knight creates a team of retro Rangers consisting of Rangers from the past, but is one Ranger from the future. It is Bridge from SPD, this time sporting the red uniform. We know that Bridge becoming blue was a bit closer, if not in the year 2026, so I can only imagine him being red would be around 2027, 2028, but there's no like official information on that. It's also alluded to that Bridge was brought to the past via a mix of Sentinel Knight's magic and Morphin Grid energy. Again, there's no real confirmation on this. Maybe the Sentinel Knight just appeared in the future to or communicated with SPD, let's say, and they were able to send Bridge back via their time traveling means. But as far as we know, it's like Sentinel Knight magic, morphin grid magic, and then maybe time hole. Now, I'm going to include an episode from Power Rangers Jungle Fury, but it is really up for debate. There's an episode called Good Karma, Bad Karma, where Daishi is able to see his past, but it's unclear whether it's actually a case of time travel or more of a Doctor Strange astral projection type scenario. It's done via a monster called Carnisaur, who is forcefully making Jared change his past to do more bad deeds, but it doesn't look like he's actually changing the past. It's instead just like mentally corrupting his brain, and I don't think it has any like long-term effect. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this is time travel related, or do you think this is more of a mental mind fuckery? We take a little bit of a break from time travel now, but we do have, I will actually tell a lie. We have the legendary battle where the SPD Rangers and the Time Force Rangers show up. We also have the fact that they can use the SPD powers in general as legendary powers. That's a lot of time travel bollocks, which is what this video is about, if anything. But we just assume that the Time Force Rangers came back in time via their technology because Wes got in touch with them. And then as for the SPD Rangers, don't know what they'd be doing in 2014 per se. Maybe the Sentinel Light called on them again. Or maybe they just remember the legendary battle. And they were like, yeah, there was a team of SPD Rangers there factually. It's in the history books. You guys are going to have to go. Maybe that's the situation. Now, Dino Supercharge has potentially the most controversial time travel moment in the entire franchise. The whole show is set in a completely different timeline, being only one of 2 shows to be doing that, the other being RPM. In the final episodes of the show, the world gets sucked into a black hole, but the Rangers use the power of their energems to create a time portal, going all the way back to when the energems first landed on Earth during the reign of the dinosaurs. The Rangers travel back and defeat Sledge in the past. However, in that universe, it was Sledge who sent the asteroids down to make the dinosaurs extinct. So when they defeated Sledge and went back to the future,
Back to the future!
dinosaurs never went extinct. And now humans and dinosaurs live together. In fact, the Amber Beach Museum even went from the Amber Beach Museum to the Amber Beach Zoo. As I said, this is a separate universe to the main timeline. People beef this idea that they reverted time and that dinosaurs now live with them. I love Dino Charge. I'm not a huge fan of Dino Supercharge, but I like it for what it is as just, a big part of the show. I don't really care. They play into it later on down the line when we see Coda show up in different episodes and he's like, yeah, I'm from a Dino Charge world where dinosaurs exist. It's kind of fun, but it is kind of weird. But it seems that the method of time travel was just energem power, which could also potentially lead into morphing grid energy. So maybe that links in together. If you want to see a video entirely on the energems and what they can do, I did a whole video on it with a bunch of creators. You can check it out on the channel. Hi guys, this is Nate from The Edit, and I've actually realized I missed out kind of 2 examples of time travel that link very heavily with Dino Supercharge. So when they go back to their regular timelines, Coda and Ivan actually go back to their original timelines that they came from due to bonding with the Energems. And there is a Christmas episode where they time travel back to present day to see the Rangers for Christmas. Then in Ninja Steel, there is a crossover with Dino Charge where Preston meets Coda in the Dino Charge world. And I didn't include this because I just thought this was dimension hopping, but then realized it would actually have been Preston going to the Dino Charge world during the time where Coda was alive during the caveman era. So I guess that counts as well. Power Rangers Ninja Steel has a Christmas episode called Past, Present and Future that features the Pink Ranger Sarah traveling through time on Santa Claus's sleigh. And I know, just bear with me. All Christmas and Halloween episodes of the Neo Saban era are typically just clip shows, and this is no exception, but what they do with it is actually really fascinating. At the end of Ninja Steel, the Rangers lose their powers, but during their Christmas gift giving, a monster shows up the Rangers aren't equipped to beat. So Sarah goes back in time to old moments throughout the show and borrows ninja power stars off past versions of themselves, interacting with them, the whole thing, bringing them to the future so the Rangers can morph, and then taking them all back, putting them back in their timelines, pretty much like how Endgame did it. Although there's a chance they did this first. Super Ninja Steel was 2018. Endgame was 2019. That's kind of crazy. Although I imagine that plot has been done a bunch in the past. And I think that's quite cool. Ninja Steel is without a doubt considered to be one of the worst seasons, not worst, just one of the more worse. One of the worst. But there was some moments where creativity shone through and, there was clearly like 1 or 2 writers who cared. The means of time travel within the episode are related to the time controller that the villain has that Sarah ends up stealing and accidentally using to travel back in time. The villain is also called Cleopatra, who is the canonical in-universe cousin of an identical villain, aka they reused the suit, Cataclock, and there's a whole bloodline involved in it. I have a whole video where I talk about Christmas episodes. I'm not going to keep trying to plug you guys videos. You can check it out if you want. But as far as I'm aware, those are all the references and cases of time travel within the main Power Rangers universe. Hyperforce does it as well. Hyperforce is a canonical sequel of Time Force. It is confirmed to technically take place in the main Power Rangers timeline, but it's the tabletop RPG game. If I included that plus the comics, you get a whole bunch of shenanigans. I don't know if how canon the time travel. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. So let's take a look at which means of time travel was used the most. First of all, we have magic, which was seen to be used about 4 times. We have the Wizard of Deception, maybe SPD when Broodwing brought them to the future, potentially Operation Overdrive, and potentially Jungle Fury. Future Tech comes in with 2, with Blue Centurion and maybe SPD if they're linked in the slightest. We have good old Time Holes, which seem to come into effect 3, maybe 4 times. Wild West Rangers, the Zeo episode, the Q-Rex episode, and then maybe the Wormhole. Maybe that's a time hole as well, just worded differently. Time Force has 5, but that's if you count them all as round trips. You have Ransic's original trip and then the team following him, that's 2. You have Alex coming from the future, and that's a round trip. You have the Rangers returning to the year 3000, and then you have the Wild Force crossover, that's 5. But then you consider the fact that the Zords and the weapons all get transported from the future every time they use. Time Force technology is wild, and I'm not counting it. I'm not doing it. It clearly wins. I've been filming for 45 minutes talking about time travel in Power Rangers. I'm losing my mind a little bit. The Scroll of Time was used just once, but you could maybe attribute that to Morphin Grid magic, I guess, because the amulet was involved. And in that case, it kind of links in with potentially the Energems and the Sentinel Knight bringing Bridge from the future. Grey areas. Grey areas. That said, though, the Energems could also be considered as alien tech, which would then fall into the same category as the Ninja Steel time controller from Cleopatra. It's sort of like we need like a Venn diagram of this, do you know what I mean? Like there's certain ones that overlap, certain ones that don't. Have I missed any? Did I get any wrong or mixed up? Please let me know in the comments. And if you want to see a video on a weird Power Rangers animated rip-off show, then click the video in the end card. Thank you so much for watching this video. It took a long time to make, and in that time, Beauty Baba Yaga actually posted a very similar video, so I definitely recommend going to check that out. And of course, I want to give a massive thank you and shout out to Sarah Jane, our Super Dino Mode patron.